This is Mr. Justin Edits, and honestly, I probably should have hired him to make this hook, because while he's my favorite DaVinci Resolve TikTok creator right now, he actually got his start in trailers and sizzle reels. So naturally, when he said he wanted to come on the show, I was so stoked. This episode was great. We started out with his background and how he got into editing.
So my wife got me into editing.
We went down a crazy nerdy rabbit hole on workflow and hotkeys and shortcuts.
The DaVinci Resolve shortcut templates, they are actually .txt files.
We also dove into our thoughts on TikTok and YouTube and his plans with YouTube going forward.
I really enjoy making videos on TikTok.
And of course, because sometimes I struggle to keep us on track, we went down a whole bunch of other nerdy rabbit holes.
Like we score, we have to like edit something and score it or something like that.
It was just a great conversation. So without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode of Editing Guests. Justin, my man, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to get to talk with you. I think, I don't know where this conversation is going to go exactly. I have mainly a focus on short form today and editing short form and talking all things about that. But welcome to the show. So excited to get to chat with you, and just thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to get going on this. Yeah, and I've been watching you for a while, like creeping on your TikToks, but also your YouTube videos. I'm really enjoying them. It's real. I'm really excited to be here,
dude. Oh, thank you. That's so kind of you to say. Yeah, I think really to kick us off today, because I'm just selfishly curious. I want to know about your background, because I think really, again, the thesis that I think we're going to keep coming back to in this video, which we may surprise ourselves and go on tangents, but I do think I am so intrigued by the short form, long form, editing niche kind of discussion. And, you know, it seems like that's your strength right now. That's where a lot of your focus is. We've kind of talked offline, and you're thinking about getting into YouTube, and I'm coming from the opposite end. I've got nothing but love for YouTube and long form, and I have kind of started getting into this whole vertical space to just
we're passing each other on a freeway going opposite directions, like just waving at each other.
Like doing this, and I find that so fascinating. So I think firstly, tell us about yourself, like at least as far as editing goes. Like, what is your background? What got you into this? Because I think that'll be helpful too as we move forward in this conversation.
Absolutely. So do you want the short story or the long story for how I got into editing?
I mean, it's got to all be important. So just give it to me. Tell what, hit me with, don't be shy.
Of 1939.
Okay, be a little shy.
Well, basically, it goes, it kind of all comes full circle. So I'm going to go right back to the beginning. So basically, I never went to film school. I don't come from an editing background or anything like that. I actually I worked in forestry for like a decade. So a little bit different than pressing buttons on a computer or pressing record on a camera or anything like that. You're pulling a chainsaw and a little bit different. But anyways, at the time I was working out of town for 6 weeks at a time. And one of the times when I was back, at the time, my girlfriend, but my now wife, I was hanging out with her and looking over her shoulder, and she was an editor at the time.
Oh.
And I had like 6 weeks off, and I was just like looking, I was, oh, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, it's just editing. And, she didn't gatekeep it. She was basically like, it's really easy. Do you want to know how to do it? And I was like, sure. And she was just very, just generous, I guess. When somebody's just very open and generous and not like, this is my thing, get your own thing. She was very much like, yeah, I'll show you how to do it. It's really fun, whatever. And so she taught me how to edit. And she was basically like, got me set up working on, one of the things she was working on was this sizzle reel for a TV show, which is basically like when they put together almost like a trailer to sell a show that doesn't exist yet. And okay. So she was like, here, you can work on putting these selects together for some B-roll. So she gave me like here you go, here's a little task you can do kind of thing. And I just got really obsessed with it. And I just was editing for, like 12 hours a day, just over and over and over. And the whole time that I was off, like I was not working, I was on, my off days. I just worked basically like editing the whole time. And I just kind of never looked back. And then that kind of transitioned into working kind of assistant editing on these sizzle reels. And that's kind of where I started. And the interesting thing is working on these sizzle reels is that these shows don't exist yet. So it's in your best interest to kind of like really sell them and make them look like they've got this big budget behind them.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so a lot of the times that means, like going the extra mile with sound effects, even learning motion graphics and visual effects to some degree. And so that's kind of where I started. So it was a little bit of everything,
Nice.
basically. And then coming from there, moving into work as an assistant film editor and then a film editor. Yeah, so it was kind of a weird
So
trajectory.
yeah, not to cut you off, but like so how many years ago was this with your wife and you started doing the sizzle reel stuff?
This is about 10 years ago.
Okay, okay. So yeah, nice. Okay, so also follow-up question, what was she using NLE wise and what did you start on?
So Premiere.
Premiere. Okay, so you're using Premiere, After Effects probably for the MoGraph stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Dang, that's super cool.
And yeah,
Okay.
and she taught me how to, like, really kind of crazy. So it basically gave me the, open the door so that I could kind of look into it a bit. And then YouTube obviously filled in all the rest. Like, just, you can learn everything on YouTube. You can really get the in-depth expertise there for sure. So yeah, but I started on Premiere and I used that for about like 7 years. A long time. Premiere and After
Yeah.
Effects. Yeah.
Well, and that, yeah, I mean, that could be a whole nother tangent, but I mean, definitely what is available on the internet is everything. Like the accreditation of film school and all of that is still somewhat necessary depending on the job description, right? But like the information is not hiding behind that. So that's really fascinating. Did your wife go to film school?
She did.
Okay, okay. So she has that background. That is so interesting, dude. That is so cool. So then once you started assistant editing, did that take over the forestry job then and you just started doing assistant editing?
Yeah, so it was actually pretty quick, that transition. Like, once I started doing it, I started working kind of like as her assistant. So she was doing these, she would be working on like a sizzle, and I would just be like doing the B-roll or the things that I could do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Until she got more busy and stuff, and then she's basically like, "Well, can you take the lead on this project?" And then I would just kind of do the whole thing. And then
Yeah.
she's basically like, "Well, I think you can probably do one of these now." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, we'll see." And
Yeah.
yeah, and it just kind of, how it just kind of snowballs. It's like if you do a good job and just like, kill yourself and stay up for like 40 hours straight, get a good edit done. But if you put in that extra mile or whatever, and release a really high quality of work, people will notice eventually, and it just means more jobs and more jobs, and then people want to work with you. And so it
Yeah.
kind of, that's how it worked for me. So yeah, no, I came from forestry running a chainsaw to
Dude.
yes, working all the way up to like, yeah, like working on, like I worked on a film that was like on Showtime,
Uh-huh.
and other stuff that's like film trailers and stuff like that. And it's interesting because that's kind of became my niche. So even though I went on to be an assistant film editor and be a film editor for various films, my niche is still very much like that, the trailer stuff that I started with, because it's very much like the
Yeah.
short form, like how do you craft the opening? How do you, keep their attention? How do you really sell this thing? And how do you make this story? How do you make them care about this story as quickly as possible, and get them to connect with these characters and care about what's happening in this video, right? Um,
Dude.
so
Yeah.
it's kind of come full circle where now I'm into making short form content of myself, of like me talking on camera and cutting it, which is bizarre to say the least.
Yeah.
But it's full circle coming back to that where I started, which is like with the short form stuff, which I really, really love, because it is its own kind of different language when you're editing. But I really enjoy doing it.
Dang, I need to like be taking notes as we're talking here because I would love to circle back on the sizzle stuff, or I don't know, maybe we just talk about it now because like personally, like I've really niched down into editing myself because that again, I just realized how much I love it. And I was like, oh, this is the common thread through my life through all these things that I think I've been into. And I didn't realize like the bedrock was editing. And if I was to niche down even further, I love making intros, which is kind of similar to your sizzle thing. So when you say so you did sizzle stuff, which was pitching for shows before they're in existence, but now you also work on like full-fledged trailers, or no?
Yeah, so that's kind of how I started, was working on the pitch, like the sizzle pitches, because it's a little bit of I mean, you still have deadlines and you still have this and that, but you don't have the stakes aren't quite the same. There isn't this big budget. You don't have like once I started working on films as an assistant editor or a film editor, you have a lot more people to answer to. You have a lot more bosses, executive producers, people from the studio, your director. You have just a lot more people. The amount of people that are all kind of sending you notes and arguing sometimes amongst themselves, but they're trying to make it the best product possible. But you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen at that point.
Yes.
Whereas with a sizzle trailer or a sizzle trailer, not sizzle reel, like a sales sizzle, I would call them. Like it's basically like
Sale.
you're pitching a show to be bought by a studio, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
but with that, I don't want to say the stakes are lower, but it's kind of like, look, if we can get this sold, that would be amazing. But we're going to give you a lot more creative license to make this a thing because look, we just shot all the footage and we're just going to give it to you and be like, make this a thing, make this a show, make this like, use your eye to what is going on right now and what audiences are responding to and what is, trendy, what kind of style of trailer and music is trendy and this and that. So you get a lot of license to kind of um, be creative, which I really like, I guess.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then as you get more into like working on a film, there's a lot more rules and there's a lot more structure to it. And definitely like my weaknesses start to show of not coming from a traditional background when there's a lot of workflow things that I didn't come from film school and learn, like I do know how to use Avid fairly well, but I didn't come up through Avid and everything. I was more of a necessity learning it so that I could work on certain jobs. But I really don't like it at all.
They require that, right? Like that's one of that. Again, I'm so fascinated by this world because I've just never even touched it, and honestly, I haven't talked to too many people because I'm just like a YouTube nerd. Like, again, talking about niching down, but I'm so stoked to ask you these questions because it's like, so they require you to use Avid.
Well, a lot of the times, like you are just one kind of component in a pipeline of a workflow, right? So there's a lot of companies or entities of people doing different things like color correction or compositing or all the different parts. And so you're just kind of like this one cog in this. I'm just using the worst metaphors or language here. You're like one piece in this pipeline, but basically, and so that is kind of standardized to fit with everything else that's going on, and that's why you have like Avid is like the industry standard, is because it to fit into this pipeline and this workflow to work with all these other entities and professionals. That's just the standard of what people are using.
Yeah, it's established.
In the same way that, I would say like Premiere is sort of like the standard for YouTube editors, because a lot of times the creators know Premiere and they're like, I would like to work with a Premiere editor because that way I can make the final adjustments or I can get the project file and get hands-on with it or whatever. And so in the same way that's kind of the industry standard for a lot of like anything non-film, I think Premiere would be the next kind of standard.
Which you and I think is shifting.
Yes. Yes. And then, so for me, I mean, like in this last film that I worked on, I was kind of like, well, I really want to do it in DaVinci Resolve because I don't want to work in Avid and everything. So finding like the right little projects where maybe you just get enough freedom to, pick your own NLE and just get a little freedom to get, to be able to make some, like it's not going to work in most of the cases. So you got to find the right little projects where you can do it. But I think there is a way forward for people who are like a Premiere editor or a Resolve editor to work on feature films in a professional capacity. It's just finding the right projects and stuff. And I mean, even the whole industry itself is constantly changing, I think. And what it means to work in the industry or work on like a professional film is continually changing, right? Because what is a film except it's something that has a large amount of advertising behind it to push it out to the masses. And if creators are able to do that themselves on their own platforms. I did that short about the Gruff. I made like a TikTok about it, and I just love that. I just love that whole thing. Like I saw he promoted it with all these behind the scenes on his TikTok and his Instagram, but literally they were getting millions of views. So you got like this, all of a sudden, this audience of millions of people who know about your short that you're making, and it's crowdfunded by like people who are fans of your art. Like that's so like to me that was just like so cool. I'm like, this should be the future.
And it is. And I think the pace at which we have democratized everything from camera technology, DaVinci has 99% of its features for free. I mean, like, there is literally so much that is just so accessible, even within like 10 years, 6 years, right? That and that's where it's interesting to hear this from you, because again, it's like, I would just imagine that the industry from that more traditional background is like, dude, we can't even keep up. Like, we're having to use these old things we'd maybe like to, but it's just like, it's moving so fast. And I do think, and maybe I'm kind of curious on your opinion on this, I do think that we maybe have hit a little bit of a plateau, which is maybe a bad take. I hope to be proven wrong, maybe, but it feels like DaVinci is so solid. DaVinci's gaining a lot of hold. Like the Sony FX3 is a great example. Like, they're shooting feature films on it. No one can tell the difference. Like, all of these tools that like you and I can use, like, we don't need $zillion to use them, are like kind of at a point where it's almost just like, what could we even ask for, right? And I'm sure we'll keep getting crazy stuff. Do you think the industry will start to adopt DaVinci? Because it feels like it just has to. I mean, there's just so much there with the cloud features too. Like, I've been playing around with that with a couple of clients, and man, it's still a little rough around the edges in certain ways, but like, the concept and the fact that it even works at all is delicious. It's so good. So I don't know. What do you think? I mean, like, you said you used it on that one project. Like, how'd that go? What did the people say? Were they mad you did it?
Yeah, I mean, it can absolutely work on a film 100%. And I know there are people making like bigger feature films on it 100%. There's a lot of it's really cool in a lot of ways, because you have the cloud and you have everything is kind of centralized in here. So you're able to basically have your editors, your colorist, all these professionals. You can do VFX in there, compositing in there. I think that especially in the last, couple of years, my eyes have really been open to what Fusion can do in terms of compositing. And even, professional compositors that are coming from, they're using something like Nuke, and
Yeah.
they're looking at this and it's like, yeah, nodes, they understand. It's a lot easier for them to start to understand. And I think in my personal experience, like coming from After Effects, the core, like how things work, like the basic, at a really base level, how VFX work and motion graphics work, once you understand that, you can switch to a different program. And just once you wrap your mind around like how nodes are, similar or different, but also similar to layers, you can basically, there's just like an aha moment, or there was for me anyways, where all of a sudden,
sure.
all my After Effects knowledge just transferred over into Fusion, because I was basically like, I just had to it was just a different way of doing things. But once you kind of get over that, you can just download everything you know from After Effects. I'm so sure about this. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, you just have to get over this wall or pass this kind of block of, nodes are so weird and this is not what I'm used to, which is layers. And that I've done layers for years and years and years. And it makes sense to me. But then once you do nodes and once you start to figure it out, it's like, okay, I can actually take everything that I was doing and all like the knowledge of how things work and how you create these visual effects, and you can bring it into Fusion. Then you realize all the things that I couldn't do with layers, I can now do with nodes,
Yes.
especially, making adjustments when you have to go back and change things. That's where nodes really, really shine. That's where like the node workflow, I think, really shows how powerful it is because of when you need to, because as we know, like you make something, and especially in a professional setting, you'll get notes and they'll want things changed. And that can be very traumatizing in After Effects or in a layer based compositing or visual effects setup. So whereas with nodes, it can be a mercy to have nodes. Like you can go back and you can make these changes, and it can affect. You can change one thing and it can affect everything. Does that make sense? Like you can come back
Yeah.
and just make a couple tweaks to a couple nodes, and then you've kind of like it'll update across the rest of your project, and you didn't have to go back and painstakingly change it like compositions within compositions within compositions.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's what I like, and maybe that's where my previous statement falls apart. Like, I think those are the type of things that will continue to evolve, that really change how we view this stuff in terms of like kind of the next era. Because so I never have used After Effects personally, believe it or not. But like, doing any sort of motion graphic in Final Cut, it's the same thing, right? It's all kind of like layery based type stuff, or DaVinci or whatever. And going into Fusion, it just like you said, it just once it clicks and you understand it, it is, I think, in an objective sense, the right way to think about it and represent what is taking place. Because, like you said, it just allows certain things to be so much easier. When you visualize it that way, it honestly, I think, is the correct way. It's like a pipeline of things going into making a final, it's like, it's just one of those things where it's like, sure, like subjectively, artistically, depending on what you prefer, of course, whatever you use is great, but like objectively, I think nodes is the answer, which is kind of, I mean, that's kind of why Nuke exists too. And I kind of feel that way about Final Cut with track-based editing too. Like, obviously, track-based editing is great. There's so many different opinions between that and like the magnetic timeline, but it's like, I mean, honest to God, I think the magnetic timeline is that evolution where it's like, it is the better way to represent this stuff. I understand why you hate it because it's different. Like, I get that. But like, I do think it is the objective, more correct UI interpretation of what we're doing, which is exactly how I feel about Fusion. So
I saw your short that you did about the button to turn it on and off on the or no, that was the the playhead.
The secondary playhead, dude.
Secondary playhead, right.
Have you used an NLE that has a secondary playhead? Because CapCut and Final Cut both have it.
No, so I haven't.
Dude, I don't know why they couldn't add it in DaVinci. It sounds like the dumbest tiny little thing, but I'm telling you right now, like if DaVinci Resolve added that feature, I would, like, so many complaints just go out the window. Like, stay track based, don't worry about magnetic, whatever, don't do that. But if you could add that feature and have it be toggleable, if that's a word, just like CapCut, like, dude, it saves so much time. Because again, like, and this is another good question. I mean, I'm a big shortcuts guy for DaVinci because that's the only way to like make it an enjoyable experience. But I still use my mouse all the time because you just have to. Like, there's so many things you can't do without a mouse. And if it could just follow, again, my mouse is moving around and I want my brain and that process to always be in sync. And so the fact that sometimes I'm looking back at something and I'm like, and I want to change this text, and it's like, okay, now I got to go back to where my playhead is, click up above, drag it, whatever. Like, it's like, I wish it was just there and I could just go click. Okay, I'm right there. And that's how it is in Final Cut and CapCut. And I just would love to know technically why they can't do that, because I can't think of a reason why. They probably have a reason. I don't know.
I have to play with it more in CapCut. I got to play with it some more. Is it the same in CapCut as in Final Cut? So will I get the true experience of if I play with it in CapCut? Will I get
for that feature? Yes. So the secondary playhead is the exact same. It's not the same magnetically as Final Cut, which I think might be a patent. So I think that's how they're kind of getting around it. Is like one track is very like Final Cut, but then all the additional tracks act like DaVinci, which is kind of weird. Or Premiere, like it's like the main track is magnetic and does what Final Cut does, but then the tracks above it don't. So I don't know if that's how they're getting around it, but the playhead thing I don't think is under patent. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not in the weeds on that, but like CapCut has it and Final Cut has it, so it's like why can't DaVinci have it? But yeah, let me know what you think, because it just feels like, hey, I'm always with my mouse. My cursor is just, that's how my brain's working. If I'm using my mouse, it's with my cursor. So it'd be so nice if it could go with it.
Yeah. I mean, and just to go back to, keyboard shortcuts, you're talking to a guy who is literally, that's my jam. Keyboard shortcuts. Yes, they are so important. And I've literally, one of the hardest things I think about making tutorials, DaVinci tutorials, is to not, every step of the way be like, I use this hotkey and you should change it to what I'm using. Like, to try to remember to use all the default DaVinci hotkeys, because I have a completely custom setup for hotkeys.
Well, when I was talking to Mr. Alex Tech, he said that. He was like, I haven't really been able to do hotkeys because I'm here to teach beginners. So I have to pretend like I'm coming from their angle. I'm like, dude, I couldn't do it. I could not do that. Like, as much as I love editing and like love teaching editing, like I can't edit day to day like that or make videos like that. Like, I have to do that, which is, like you said, I kind of like that because I like sharing hotkeys that I find. I think that's fun, which totally leads into a great question of like, what are what are some of your zingers? You know, what is, because I've got a few in Resolve that like, I'm like, if you don't do this, like you are making your life hell for no reason. So what are some of yours?
Okay, so first of all, I have all my hotkeys under my left hand. So it's like kind of
Yes.
like a gamer. So I don't have to like I literally don't have to move this hand at all. Actually, so back in when I was still on Premiere, do you know Rocket Jump, the channel Rocket Jump on YouTube? It's like Freddie
Yep.
Wong.
Freddie Wong.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he did they used to do something called Rocket Jump Film School, I think it was called. And
Okay.
anyways, he did a YouTube video about his hotkeys, and I was watching it. And I was just like, you know, when like all the things come out of your brain, like all that. Yeah. I was like, oh
Yes.
my gosh. And he's basically like, he just talked about how he put it all around his left hand, and it's just like these keys and whatever, and it's all just navigation and editing and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I started doing that in Premiere, and I literally my speed, you know, like doubled or tripled overnight. And I just brought that
Yes.
all with me into DaVinci and just transferred it all to DaVinci and just kept those same hotkeys. So I've been using the same stuff for like, I don't know, 7 years or something like that. But it's
I
all under
love
my
it.
left hand. Can't live without it.
Yeah, I have the exact same mentality. I have a few. I'm trying to think. I have a few on the right hand, and now I've got to like hold it up and look at it to like remember. Because like there's a few that I've put there because I've just run out of space on the left side of my keyboard within a reasonable number of like not like carpal tunneling my fingers for everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So like P, yeah, P is auto sync clips in the timeline for audio because I've been doing that a lot lately with two angles. And so I was like, okay, I should get a hotkey for that instead of right clicking. So P is that one because it's not like I do it all the time, but it's enough to justify taking the hand off the mouse and pressing a button versus right click menu, blah, 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 blah. Let me see here. Oh, Y is select under playhead.
Okay.
Which again, if you're using trim start and trim end, which I hope you are, like that hotkey's great because like if you're just doing selects, like anything under gets selected, so then it just automatically lets you cut specifically just that clip. I'm trying to think, that might be it on my right hand at the moment that I use semi regularly. Yeah, dude, it's all left hand. You gotta go left hand.
Yeah. So I basically like made a graphic with like I put it in my bio as like a downloadable my Justin's awesome keys. And I made a graphic that goes with it, like a guide for it. So you can see like it gets into a lot of detail. So basically all of the like ASDF and then QWER,
Yep.
it's like those keys and then and then also ZXCV, but with modifiers. So like with Control and Shift and Alt modifying them. So
Yep.
basically like the same bundle of keys, but just with modifiers.
Okay.
And yeah, then it's just can't live without it, man. Can't live without it.
Do you give that away for free, or am I allowed to ask you like what's on home row? Like what do you got on home row? We're getting so nerdy. I love it.
I'm trying to pull up a picture of it here to show you, but it's just for free. And actually, it's funny. The DaVinci Resolve shortcut templates, they are actually .txt files. So when you save it as once you get your shortcuts that you like, you can save it as a preset in DaVinci Resolve. And when you save it, it's actually just a .txt file. And so you can email that to your friends and download them or whatever. And then you can very easily just import them and you can call them whatever you want.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find a picture here I can pull up and show you, but I made a little graphic, like a guide for it. And it's called Justin's Awesome Keys. Oh, here we go. Oh, I found it. You're going to get a kick out of this. Let's see if I can hold this up to the camera here.
Dude, look at that.
Put it in focus.
That is so awesome. Okay, well, and I got to go download it. But I mean, yeah, like
Yeah,
what?
let me know what you think and how similar it is to yours. But it's basically, as you can see, it's like all the left hand is just like it's just all clustered around the left hand, and then modifiers for everything. And then it's kind of organized here between like the navigation, the editing, and then utility. I called it like utility stuff. So on the same kind of thing that we were talking about, I want to tell you something that I think is, and I want to get your take on this, but I think this might be unexpected, but I think the coolest thing when comparing DaVinci Resolve to other NLEs, I think, as particularly Premiere, this is like the biggest thing that I noticed because I had to go back and forth a lot. When I was first transitioning, I had a lot of work that was still in Premiere. So, you know, I think a lot of people get in that position where they're bouncing back and forth between NLEs, especially when they're just switching to something new or whatever. You know, it's like, well, I got my most important project still on my other one. But and this is kind of unexpected, but I found one of the biggest selling features for DaVinci Resolve in terms of like workflow editing kind of stuff is that there is something called the little magnet icon. So it's like I think it's called Snap. Let me just see what it's called here. It's called
magnet icon. Oh,
I have it as N. It's like a
snapping.
snapping.
Yeah, I think that's the standard shortcut because I've left it as N. Yeah.
So basically,
Do not tell me that Premiere does not have snapping.
No, it does have it, but it is so much better in DaVinci Resolve. Like it is so much better. Like I don't know what it is, but with Premiere, you really have to like get it really close for it to like snap in. And whereas in DaVinci Resolve, it's like it's like thinking about where you want to put it. It's like whoop, it puts it exactly there. You don't even have to like really get it totally dialed in. It's like, oh, I knew where you're trying to drop that. I knew where you're trying to put that clip.
It's super helpful.
Yeah, and I think aside from all the massive differences between the two, that one stood out to me. I think more. Just because it's like, it's a workflow thing. At the end of the day, you're chopping up stuff in your timeline, right? And there's a lot of differences, but that's like a big workflow thing that I'm like, when I want to go back to Premiere, I'm just like, I'm really fiddling with this thing. And these clips, they're just not dropping in and they're not getting lined up. So we'll see. I'm curious to think what other people think about this or if anybody has a similar take on this, but for me, that was a stark difference.
Again, for anyone watching, like comment down below. I'm so intrigued personally, because I think you could say I haven't used Premiere. I have, but it was as soon as I tried it, I was just like, this is just why? Why bother? I'm a little more interested lately with all the AI features. Like that's kind of getting me like I probably should maybe poke around a little bit again. But so in Final Cut, the snapping is awesome. So that was something that I just didn't even notice a difference on. So it's so interesting to hear you say that because snapping felt very similar. So maybe they took that and were like, hey, this feels better in Final Cut. Let's kind of make sure the algorithm feels similar for snapping.
Well, since you're on Final Cut, you're gonna have to compare that feature and then let me know. Compare the snapping and see which is better, Final Cut or DaVinci. Or if they're not too dissimilar, then at least we know, okay, they both have good snapping.
I've never thought of that, which makes me think that they're both pretty on par. And same thing as, because like, how Resolve has even the UI indicator of like what it's lining up with below. Like Final Cut's always had that, which was great. And yeah, like I've never in either software usually felt like I'm missing, which I've heard people talk about this in Premiere. It's like, oh dang, I was one frame off and I had one black frame that I didn't catch. It's like, it's so easy to not do that in DaVinci and Final Cut because everything is, dang. Oh my gosh, dude, that is I love that. I love that. That is so nerdy, and that is the stuff I'm here for. Well, and you got to have that hotkey because like when you're doing music, I find the snapping to actually be super frustrating, right? Like sound design, I need to be able to like frame by frame move stuff, but for clips, it's a lifesaver.
I use X and C to nudge clips one frame backwards and forwards. So I use that a lot for lining up sound effects. And then you can also hold down Shift and then move it, nudge it several frames backwards and forwards. But that's a big one I love to use is just to nudge clips around just a frame at a time.
Yeah, that's genius. So, and I wanted to ask you that. So X and C is nudging clips one frame. What is ASDF do? No modifiers for you? So curious.
So basically S, and it's so funny because some of these might be tied to like old Premiere things. So it'll be interesting to see, like, I don't know what the history of all this is, but so A basically just whatever tool you have, like A just returns it to your cursor, like the arrow tool.
Yep, same.
S is, and then also select all, Shift A, Shift A selects all. S brings up or Command A, sorry. S brings up the slip tool. So it's basically like lets you slip. I think I don't know what it's actually called in Premiere, but it lets you move the clip. It keeps the clip as it is, but it moves the clip inside of it backwards and forwards. And it brings up two little things in your source viewer or in your source monitor so you can see like where the beginning and the end of that clip is. So that's what I use S for. And then D and F I use for my ripple trims, trim to playhead start, trim to playhead end. I also use F to find things. So Alt F is to find, if I have a clip on the timeline and I want to find it in my project media pool, Alt F finds it in there.
I like that one. I haven't used that one. That one's smart. I like that one.
Yeah, really handy for So many
Yeah.
things. I'm trying to think. And then D is I use for to deselect or deactivate, deselect. So um
Okay.
I think it's I gotta check my thingy now. It's so funny when I'm not actually doing it, it's like I
Oh
can't
yeah,
remember them. Um
totally. I'm the same way. It's like I have to like look at it, and even then I'm like I probably need to just pull it up because I'm probably remembering it wrong. Because once you, and it doesn't take long. I don't know if you feel this way, but it's like once you commit to a hotkey, there's a huge like hurdle of like you really struggle to use it, and then once it clicks, it's like your brain is just like locked in, and then you just forget. Someone asks you, you're like, "What do you do for this?" I'm like, shit, I don't know. I gotta look.
and actually, for somebody, and I say this to people who are like, oh, how do I want to learn, hotkeys, but where do I start kind of thing. And I just say, well, first of all, what do you think is the best hotkey to learn first?
You're asking me.
Yeah. What would you say is the best hotkey?
Personally, I always preach and die on this hill, and I'm curious. Yeah, I guess it's different for everyone. I think trim to playhead and start to playhead, and I think that's heavily influenced from my Final Cut background. I think those are, and I have those assigned to S and D, so it's my two middle fingers. Because again, if I'm going through footage just to be able to cut the end and the back end off of a clip and have it all compressed down with no gaps, is like, I mean, I seriously think you could go from like doing selects to like two or three times faster than whatever you were doing before. So yeah, I think trim to playhead, start to playhead is like, or end to playhead, start to playhead, whatever it's called, the one that ripples, right? Because I have shift as my, which I recently just changed. So shift does the alternate where it'll leave the gap, but my just standard S and D brings stuff with it. So
Yeah, yeah. Trim start to playhead and trim end to playhead. I think that's there.
yes.
That's an awesome one. I mean, that's a great one because then somebody can literally start get cutting right away. And you really feel like an editor when you like press a button and that makes a cut.
Yeah. 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 And probably a close second. So I have F as just like my blade, right? So I'm not like, I very rarely am clicking the blade tool and using my mouse, right? Which maybe that's controversial. I don't know. But so F is my, so, and that's kind of my ideology is I've got like trim the beginning, trim the end on S and D. F makes a cut if I need to make a cut. And that's all it does. It just blades. And then G right next to it is my delete, right? So like home row, I'm able to just like chop, 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 cut, pull stuff out, delete stuff. Um, yeah,
That's awesome.
that's kind of what I do. So what's yours? What is the one that you're always just like, this is the most important?
Well, okay, I think that yours is the most important, but I think the first one to learn, I always suggest is the zoom. So timeline zoom in and out.
Yes.
Because it's
Yes.
just kind of,
Yes.
it's just so fun. And it's they start to get an idea about navigation. And so, yeah, so Z and Shift Z is the one that I use, but I tell people start with the zoom. And then the next one would be like a break or a split clip. I use B because I think they in Premiere they call it break. But maybe not, maybe not. I can't remember why I use B, but so that might be from Premiere.
Premiere it's break from what I've heard, and then I think in DaVinci it's blade. Right? Isn't that same thing?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm also one of those people that's like never grab the blade tool. Never.
Yeah.
I'm a no blade tool. No.
Okay.
Because basically because like I try not to use the mouse as much for editing. Like I'm more of like using the keyboard, and I think that using the blade tool starts to bring the mouse too much into it. So it's definitely like different kinds of. Now we're starting to like split a little bit in terms of like there's like more keyboard focused editing, and then bringing your mouse into it a bit more. I think like when you have the blade tool, and that's why I think like where your mouse is will matter so much more for an editor like you. Whereas for me, I'm like, no, I would never touch a blade tool. That's bringing in the mouse into this way too much. But yeah, so I use the split clip. And then basically I'm navigating around. Instead of moving my mouse, I'll be using like Q and W to jump between clips, and then E and R to move one frame or 5 frames forward and backwards.
Moving the clip or the playhead?
The playhead. So yeah, so I'm like even moving my playhead around with my hotkeys. So I'm trying to avoid grabbing the blade tool and like bringing it down to make an edit.
Yes. See, okay. And that's kind of what I've been looking for. So I need to play around with those because and that's why I like the secondary playhead, right? Is because I like, it feels like my cursor and my playhead should be able to live in the same space. But like you're saying, you're like, well, just, just nudge it, get that thing moving with your finger. And it's like, that probably is the correct answer. Even though I still think there's probably an argument to both. And I agree with you on this. And I'm curious, I'm curious if you think the same thing. To me, the mouse is for the realm of where it gets fluffier, right? Like when you're cutting clips, it's frames, right? It's 24 frames in a second, and it's very quote unquote mathematical. So making cuts and stuff, there's no kind of like nebulous thing. It's like if you literally zoomed in far enough, it's like I am cutting 2 frames off of here, right? So it's like it's almost like fitting into kind of this like grid, right? But then when you got to do like keyframes, things where the smoothing is happening in such a minutia that, there's no math typing taking place. That's where the mouse comes in. And I still think that as I'm doing that pass, like maybe I'm jumping into Fusion and I need to do some keyframes, like I got to use my mouse for that, but I still think it would be nice if the cursor could follow my mouse as I'm kind of hopping around with that stuff. But like you said, in the edit part of it, those hotkeys are great, and I need to play around with that. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just realized that I was recording some desktop audio, so I better turn that off.
Oh, nice.
That's okay. It'll still like it'll only be like when we're both talking,
Yeah.
but that's okay. Yeah. So, sorry, could you say that again? I just saw my desktop audio. I'm like, oh, I better turn that down.
It just threw you off. Like I guess just like the whole split between the mouse and the keyboard being where the mouse kind of enters that fluffier realm. Like that's where I see like there's just no, maybe I'm wrong, and this is kind of what I'm curious what you think, but it's like I don't think there's shortcuts to do keyframing, or there's really no good way. It's like you gotta kind of get the mouse at that point. But I don't know. Maybe let me know if my thought process there is wrong.
In DaVinci Resolve and Fusion, I guess the shortcut to keyframing would be like animation driven, like what is that called? Like the anim curve driven stuff where you don't even have to keyframe it. Like a lot of the like the magic animate stuff that Mr. Alex Tech makes, you just drag and drop it, and then it's kind of like animation curve driven stuff. So I mean, that is one shortcut. But what you're saying though, I 100% agree. Like really, like using the shortcuts, it's to get rid of that, and it's really to help you with when you're getting things to a rough cut point. You need to be thinking as fast as you can, or you need to be cutting as fast as you can think. And that's, I think, really what hotkeys are for with editing. It's really to be like to be chopping it up as fast as you can think of how you want to organize it. And then when you're doing the more nuanced editing, yes, I think there's no way around. You're going to need a mouse, or in my case, I have I've got one of these little wheels here. I don't know if you can see that. This is my go-to mouse. And without it, I will get carpal tunnel and have to go to the hospital probably.
Yeah, I know. I need to switch because I've got that issue happening already.
So I use one of these, and then my wife uses a vertical mouse. And for both of us, if we use like a normal mouse if I use it for more than an hour, I start to get like my wrist is sore basically.
No, and I need to. You should send me those like after we're done talking, because I should definitely buy one, because yeah. And well, honestly, my right hand hasn't been too bad yet. My left hand is god awful, and that's because I played guitar like an absolute insane person for a long time in my life. And I haven't done that, but like just all of that motion and weird hand shapes and stuff, like my left hand is pretty bad. But
Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about that. So you have like a music background. I would love to hear about your music background.
I'm eyeing your guitar in the background as well. I similar to, I mean, and I would say, well, so the only formal degree I have is in computer science. Funny enough. But like I have a huge music background, but it's very similar to this, where it's just like it's all been personal discovery, personal learning. I took piano lessons my whole life, so I guess maybe that kind of counts. But as far as like playing in Logic, playing in GarageBand back in the day when like I just couldn't afford anything but wanted to make my own music, using MIDI, a little cheap MIDI keyboard, my guitar, and like that was all self-taught. And yeah, dude, I really think that is a backbone to my love for editing, and it's something I've really considered getting more into. I just don't have time, right? Like it's like I would love to. I think I made a video about it recently. I'd love to score a video again, just because I love doing that. I'm so bad at it. I opened it up to tinker the other day, and I was just like, oh boy,
Okay, so
I am
I
rusty.
I
But
saw that the Dan Mace video that you
and
did. Man, that was so inspiring. I was watching that. I was like, okay, we gotta. If you want to do, I know you like to do editing challenges and things like that. If you want to do some sort of like we score, we have to like edit something and score it or something like that. I'm so down. I am down. Any excuse
okay,
to to do some music, I'm down.
so what's your music background then? I mean, you're feeling confident enough to score. I'm stoked on this. That's crazy.
I didn't say score well, but
But you could.
yeah, I mean, I don't have a professional background in music. I didn't take piano lessons even. I played like guitar poorly in some bands when I was a kid. And just really like, I don't know if you've seen those like Kenny Beat battles.
No, I haven't.
So it's yeah, this guy Kenny Beats, and he's on Twitch, and he has like this big massive music community, and he hosts these music battles where basically he'll like drop a sample, and then everybody goes down to download it from like the Google Drive, and then they have to flip that sample into a beat or a song or whatever, and you only get a minute, or not a minute, you get an hour to do it, and then everybody has to upload their song, and then it's like community voted, and then he's had like celebrity guest judges on there, like he had a Phineas, Billie Eilish's producer. He had like Charlie Puth on there. He had like I don't know. He's had like so many people on there, but it basically just like any regular person could just download the sample, flip it, and their song could be on a stream with like tens of thousands of people watching it and being like, "Who's this producer? Who's this guy? Like who's this musician?" So it was really kind of cool, but it just gets you that kind of like gets you amped up to do stuff. So I'd make beats for those, like they were on the weekends. He doesn't do them anymore, I don't think, but so that's kind of my lately what I've been doing with music is like just fun things, trying to do some incorporate music into editing. So I have done some composing, and I have scored some of my own work. A trailer that I did a little while ago, I scored the whole thing. And I'll send you the link to it later. But that was really fun because it was fun to write music for a trailer that was where you just kind of, and you're adding in all these like all the trailer sounds as well as the music. So that was really, really fun to do. But no, I don't have any formal training or anything like that, but I just get amped to do it because I love doing stuff with music. And I would totally do some kind of editing challenge with you, where we're scoring our edits, like two editors score their.
Get out. No, and like lock it in. We're gonna do that. And I think I'm sure there's a couple other people that would want to do that as well. So yeah, I will try to put that together. I did that awesome CapCut challenge with JP, which was so fun.
That was so great.
I want to do so many more of those, but yeah, it's dude, I haven't talked about this and I keep thinking about making a video about it, so maybe this will be a good place to put it, but like I have never been in this place where I just can't keep up. Like for the first time in my life, and it's very important to me obviously to edit, right? Like I'm not hiring anyone because it's kind of what I do, right? It's an important part of the brand per se.
Yeah.
But for the first time ever in my career, whatever you want to call it on YouTube, I am making videos faster than I can keep up with, which historically it was like, oh dang, I'm working on the one and it's taking me forever. And like, it's like, and all that to say, like, I just feel so at peace with where I'm at right now in terms of just the fire burning within me. And the long-winded answer is I want to do more of those challenge videos. I'm still just trying to catch up on like several personal videos that I'm trying to get out. And then I keep having these conversations with people, which are amazing. And I'm like, well, I got to get that done because that was so much fun. So all that to say, lock it in, keep bugging me about it. And we definitely should do that one because, dude, I would love that. And when I made that Dan video, I feel so strongly about that, where it's just like, it is the next level editor. And I honestly think well, I don't know. Maybe that's a dumb claim with AI because they'll probably be able to do stuff like that. But I think that that is something that can separate us, where it's like, you don't need to license the music. Like, I will do the edit and I will score it for you because I can just see the vision. And I've thought that so many times because it's like, not right now, but in the past when I was so good at making music, I totally could have been like working on an edit and been like, it'll actually be probably be faster for me to make this than to go search for 6 hours on Epidemic or Music
Yeah.
Bed or whatever, right? Like, because it's like, you know what you want, but you got to go find it. And it's like, well, I know what I want. So why can't I just make it? And that's why like that whole Dan video is 10 out of 10, blows my mind, so cool. Because it just shows that he's like, okay, I'm working on this. Like, yep, I know what I want. So let's start making it, and then put it in. And it's like, that is brilliant, dude. So yeah, all that's to say,
Or at the very least,
we got to
you're
do it.
you're giving more awareness to the fact that like people should also work with musicians and composers and stuff as well. So if people can't, if they're editors or they're filmmakers or whatever, and maybe they can't compose it themselves, just making them aware that like, hey, these guys, like, they're around. There's musicians and there's composers. You can just hire one of them to create whatever you want. You don't have to just like find music, scroll through and look for stuff. You can hire a musician to make your music.
Well, and even, yeah. And the cool thing too is like, I think a lot of us get our heads in the sand because YouTube likes to kind of put us in our little niche. But it's like, if you did some digging around, like, you'll find people at your level making incredible music. And chances are, if you just want to be a friend, which is like the thing I keep learning, is like, man, we're so interconnected. And man, you think that some people are just like really feeling all of those likes and whatever. It's like, no, 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 no. Like, they want to talk to a human being, right? So like, just go be a friend, and like, chances are you might like, a composer might be like, yeah, I'll compose your music, can you just make sure to credit me or whatever, and kind of have that symbiotic relationship. And I feel like that should be happening so much more on the platform. And it's like, I preach that. It's like, dude, like, I've been finding it, like, it's like, hey, internet friend, it was nice to see your content, but like, let's talk.
Yeah.
Let's get friendly, and let's keep the humanity here for as long as we can before it's gone. But
And also just to quickly go back to what you were saying, I mean, I just want to say that that is really inspiring what you were saying before. If it feels like, if you feel like that what you are doing is fueling the fire within you, that you're just like, you're cranking out content and you're feeling good about it and you're feeling like focused and you're like this laser and you're making more content faster than you can keep up with. That's really inspiring. That's awesome. That means you're doing something right. You're on the right path for sure. 100%. That's
for
really
sure,
cool.
yes. And I think I would have never given this advice because I just hadn't lived it before. But having been through tons of huge interests and hobbies, and just like, because again, like, I used to be so into music, and then after music, which I didn't really do any YouTube with music was just bands and gigs and making music and like literally trying to be a rock star. Like, that was that was the hobby. And then kind of falling out of love with it. And then the first YouTube foray was Peter McKinnon copycat, with camera content. And like, that was great, and I really liked that. And to this day, I still love making videos. I still love taking pictures. I'm the camera guy of the family. That's kind of my thing, and I take pride in that. But like, I thought that that would translate to a great YouTube channel, but no, I didn't like it for that. And so I think what I would always tell people is like, if you are feeling any level of resistance within a reasonable realm that like frustrates you and doesn't feel constructive, because obviously, like, this is all hard. I'm not trying to say it should feel easy, but at least like the ideation and wanting to share your voice, if that part feels at all constrained and like you don't want to just keep going, you're probably doing the wrong thing. And
Yeah.
dude, there's no shame in that. Like, just because everyone wants to, like, and that's the thing. Like, maybe you're an editor right now watching this. You're like, oh, I want to make editing content like Justin and Jake. That's great. But then you sit down and you're like, no, I don't like this. I love editing, but I don't like this. And I love backpacking, dude. Like, I'm a huge outdoorsy guy when I'm not doing this nerdy stuff. I've tried making a Craig Adams backpacking video. It kind of ruined it for me.
Yeah.
It kind of ruined it, which is just crazy because it seems like I should just love that
Hmm.
to the nth degree. So I always tell people, because now that I'm in it and I like just can't stop. Like I come up with an idea and it's like, dang it, I've got 6 in the chamber, dude. Don't film another one, like shut up. and but I just have to go do it. And it's like that is what I would recommend. Which I mean, I'm curious. Like, do you feel that way?
I mean, okay, so it's so funny that you say that because that is literally like the exact same thing that I would tell somebody is that the biggest problem I think that a new creator has or people who are kind of struggling when they're starting out their journey, I think is that they're looking at what other people are doing. And by default, you're just kind of looking at, especially with like the algorithms and the For You page, you're seeing more viral videos. You're seeing all the stuff that rose to the surface. And you're seeing people and you're thinking like, oh, that's what I've got to be like, or how can I get viral, or how can I be like this person or that person? And that mindset is very much like, how can I do something? How can I be a content creator this week or, today, this week, this month? Whereas what you're describing is like a mindset that is, how do I be a content creator, period? Like, it's like, what is the long-term mindset that you need to have to be able to consistently deliver? Because I think that that's one thing that everybody can agree on is like if you look at the people who are successful doing this, one thing they all have in common is they consistently deliver. They're not one-hit wonders. They consistently deliver for their audiences high quality content, and they're just killing it at whatever they do. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that is overlooked for new creators is that they don't have that mindset yet or realize how important a long-term mindset is to being successful. So yes, 100%, I agree with that.
And I would even take that one step further because you said long-term mindset. I would just say that long-term mindset is like always think about your voice. Because here's the thing. I don't think everyone's like this, and I certainly am not. I burn really bright when I'm on something, and it fades. And it fades. And I think we're seeing that on YouTube right now, where there's a lot of people. I mean, the whole quitting conversation was like so hot. But it's like I think we really hit that phase where like these people were burning so bright on their thing, and then they just fell out of love with it. And dude, that's okay. That's fine. And whether that means you're just done, whether that means you're changing to go do something else, like personally, I would say if you're able to, which I know it's not always black and white, but it's like just follow that. Like I'm trying to think of a good example of someone who I would put in that category. Like maybe even like, do you like what? Have you ever heard of like Patrick Tomaso?
No, but
Okay, he's like a camera creator, and you can tell. And I've kind of talked with him in and out of different things, but he constantly talks about how he's so tired of making like camera videos right now. It's like, yeah, dude, just go make something else. Like I just like you. I think you are a cool person that has cool opinions. He made a video with a Taco Bell sponsorship this morning and I loved it. Go make food content, right? Like that is what I think is so important right now. And another person I would recommend you to go check out on YouTube is Schaefer Nickel, if you haven't heard of him.
yes, I think I've seen some of his videos.
Yes, he is also very aligned, I think, with this ideology of like follow your voice and your heart. And man, you can just feel it in everything he makes. And everyone on here is already in on it, but I actually got to chat with him and he'll be coming out next week. And dude, he's so creative. He's so clever. And I think that's a big driving force for his existence.
So cool. Yeah, like embracing the humanity of it because we're not like, even though we're this brand or we're whatever, this and that, we're still like embracing the humanity and the genuineness of it, that the fact that, yeah, we have to be passionate about. Passion fades and it burns brighter for certain things. And yeah, that's the reality is that we're people and yeah, we're human beings.
nothing lasts forever and we all fight it, but man, it just is. And I feel like the sooner you stop fighting that, the more at peace you just feel with so many things, which again, that's where I'm at. Cause it's just like, oh, this is just what I'm doing right now. And I feel strongly. And I don't, maybe maybe it's nothing revolutionary. Maybe I'm not really making a creative spin. Everything's been done before, but for some reason it's speaking to me,
No, I don't know. I think
and that speaks to other
you've
people,
got
right?
the it factor, man. You've got the it factor.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, dude. Well, this might be a really good transition unintentionally. We're just flowing through a fantastic conversation here, but I mean, let's talk about your short form stuff, right? That is what I know you from. That's what you've been creating. It seems like that's what's kind of speaking to you, but then totally in line with this chat, you were talking to me, in the DMs, and you were like, I'm kind of thinking about going to YouTube. Like, what's going on here? What's the thought process there? Give me some Justin thoughts on that.
Yeah. So okay. So I really enjoy making videos on TikTok. So that's basically my first foray into content creation was TikTok. And actually, the reason why I chose that is because it's a little bit, for me, it was less intimidating to think of, just to conceive of making a 15-second video or a 30-second video rather than a 5-minute YouTube or a 10-minute YouTube or whatever. Um, and I really, really, I love the fact that that's how I kind of got started. And the other thing is I started scripting my videos pretty quickly. So when I first started making TikToks, I did what everybody did. I kind of looked around at everybody else and I'm like, okay, how can I, just do the tick the boxes, make these videos? How can I even like batch shoot them and make them go faster? And how can I make more content? Da-da. So anyways, if I could go back and do that differently, what I would say is to start scripting right away, because what scripting taught me right off the bat was how to organize my ideas. So I very quickly realized that I am not good at getting my ideas out. Like I'm actually terrible at it. So I need to script. I need a script to be able to put my words and organize my ideas in a cohesive way that makes sense. Because even though might make sense in my brain, and even as I'm saying it, it's not going to make sense to the average person watching it, right? So scripting it was super important, and it also taught me about the basics of turning what I have to say into a story. So storytelling as well. So I really, really was grateful for that. So I started scripting my videos, and then I wasn't very comfortable on camera. Like I literally was like working in the dark and like not like a people person, really, like not comfortable on camera or anything like that. But what helped me was having a script. So at least my ideas are organized. I don't sound like a lunatic. I've got my ideas organized in a way that makes sense. And then the next thing I can do, because it's short form and because there's lots of cuts, I can just say one line at a time. So as long as I can if I can read one line, look at the camera, just read one line and say it, I'll be fine. I can get my ideas out. I can make videos. Um, but the interesting thing was doing that over and over again. You get good at, first of all, you get good at scripting your ideas and taking those ideas and making them, into these videos that are actually digestible and interesting. And you're like, how do you get capture their interest? How do you get them to care about this thing? So you learn a lot about that really quickly, right? Because right off the bat, you realize, wow, like I put all this effort into it and nobody really cared about it. So you start kind of playing the game and learning. But it's like one thing I like about TikTok in particular, but short form, is that you kind of get to do this repetition a lot. You get to do a lot more reps of making videos. So you're learning over and over. You're just making a lot of mistakes in rapid succession, I think. So I love that about it. But I did find that the more that I did it, the less and less I was kind of reading one line at a time, and more I just got better at speaking to camera. And so even though I still like to have a script, I could wing it a little bit, and I could really focus on my delivery and some of the other aspects of that go into the video. And even thinking about, as I'm doing it, I'm thinking more about the structure of the video as I'm recording it. And I'm watching it back and thinking, what did I miss? Or now that I've actually recorded my video, or now that I've recorded that script and I watch it back, I realize, oh, that hook wasn't very good, or that needs to be switched out. So I'll quickly turn the camera back on, and I'm just going to change just one part. And that's something that I do now, but I never did at the beginning, right? At the beginning, it was very rudimentary, just kind of, how can I get through this? And now I'm while I'm shooting stuff, I'm thinking on my feet. I'm almost editing. It's all mixing together, right? All the kind of stages are all mixing together. And I'm all about searching for the best kind of product while doing it. But that's what I loved about starting on TikTok and starting with short form, is that you could kind of burn through all these terrible mistakes and cringy videos. quickly, right? Like over months, I would just go through making videos and I'd be like, well, that was terrible. But at least if I make the next video, at least I can try to make that one better. And surprise, even though I'm an editor and I came from making movie trailers and all these, like I literally edited for years and years and years, my videos were terrible. Like I couldn't make videos of myself. They were just terrible because there's all these other skill sets in terms of like like script writing and organizing your ideas and that go into making the videos. And yeah, my background as an editor couldn't do the heavy lifting needed to make that a success initially. So I find that very funny. But I love starting with short form content.
Man, yeah, there's so much in there, and it's like you said, I think that is its biggest strength, is just the speed at which you can cycle through the learning process for sure. I personally, and again, I think this kind of leads into us passing on the highway, like we were talking about. Like I personally, I love making short form content. I think it is so much fun. Every time I do it, it's just so freeing to be like, I've only got 60 seconds because I try to put it on everything, including YouTube. And it's like I've got to do it in 60 seconds, so therefore it can be whatever. It can be quick. They never take me more than a day typically, as long as, at least with my quality of standard for vertical. And I think that that is my favorite part about it, because I think oftentimes with a YouTube video, I just get so lost in how long it takes, and that often makes me fall out of love with it pretty quick. Whereas like with a short form, it's like it's almost so quick. I keep interest the whole time before it fades. I'm like, okay, it's time to upload it. We're good, And so I totally agree. I think it's a great place to start. But then, yeah, kind of transitioning, right? Like what is it that is drawing you to longer form, since you've been, I mean, you've been crushing it on with your TikTok stuff. So what's bringing this next chapter in? Is it, yeah, walk me through that.
I think, I think it's just there's the platforms are different. And I think that, TikTok, you can certainly build a community on TikTok 100%. I just think how it's set up, like how you would go about nurturing your audience there is different. Like I think it's pretty well known that people say, you might follow somebody on TikTok, you might press follow and then never see a video from them ever again. And that's just kind of the way that it's set up, is that the For You, it's all based around the For You page very heavily. And it's all about getting reach, right? It's all about crafting videos and content that is going to get you a lot of reach. It is very much a top of funnel sort of platform, in the way that you're accessing this larger environment. And it can be tricky to build those relationships with your audience in the same way that you can on something like YouTube, obviously. Like I think YouTube is king 100% for audience building, for even for getting information. Like, I mean, what I'm doing on doing the DaVinci Resolve tutorials, at first I was just going to do like a lot of like video editing tips, more generalized kind of tips and content creation stuff. But I did like a DaVinci Resolve video, and I got a lot of people really love that. And then I was looking on TikTok and I was realized, well, there's not really anybody making DaVinci Resolve content on TikTok at the time. This was last year. And I mean, there was a little bit, but not really. Like there's lots of people making Premiere content and stuff, but not very many people. All the DaVinci people were on YouTube making amazing DaVinci videos. And I thought, well, I can't really contend with those. I can't compete with all these great people on, and there are great creators, DaVinci creators on YouTube. That's how I learned DaVinci Resolve, was from watching YouTube videos and these fantastic creators. But I looked at TikTok and saw, okay, I can be the guy making DaVinci Resolve tips on TikTok, because there's nobody really doing it, or not a lot of people doing it. But there didn't seem to be a lot of competition around it. So I started making DaVinci Resolve videos, and that was kind of a nice kind of finding just a little niche where there's not a lot of competition is kind of a good way to go as well at the beginning. But I definitely feel like the next steps are on YouTube for me in terms of making, even with my tutorial stuff. Like it's just hard to, like, people watch like a DaVinci Resolve tip on TikTok and it's like, and they might favorite it or whatever, but it's like, if they actually want to learn it and follow along with me, I need to be on YouTube making longer form videos. but I really love making TikTok videos. If I could just make TikTok videos, that's what I would like to do. I'm also
Yeah.
in Canada, and we don't have like a creator fund or anything like that. So there's that. Like, there's no like inherent monetization like there is on YouTube. You know, like YouTube has that built-in monetization to it. So I don't have that on TikTok. Um, but I have been kind of like launching some stuff. Like I have that green screen paper animator plugin. Um, so I kind of like that was like a
Which I need to pick up.
yeah. That was like a big. I mean, I went from like 100 subscribers, and actually, you know, shout out to my friend Ben Kaluza because he posted a video about it on his TikTok and his Insta, and I went from like 100 subscribers on YouTube to like 600 in like a week.
Very cool.
Yeah, and all people just downloading that plugin and everything. I mean, I won't get into that. I could talk about that plugin for a while, but yeah, back to just like, you know, TikTok and YouTube. So, and TikTok, I just feel like, yeah, it is very top of funnel. It's all about reach. It's about reaching a lot of people. It's tricky for me to kind of cultivate a DaVinci Resolve audience of editors and video enthusiasts and stuff. I kind of am looking to bring them to YouTube or to, I started a Discord. So getting people into Discord, and I want to do other like community editing sort of things. So I have some plans in that regard. And then, I mean, the cherry on top for all this, I don't know if you've been following the news, but have you been seeing the stuff about that bill to ban TikTok that's popped up in the news in the last couple of days?
No, I haven't.
Oh yeah. So there's this, I don't know where it's at right now, but there's this new bill that's like, again, now, like, because you probably heard like a while ago, TikTok was in the news for like they were trying to ban it or whatever. And now that's happened again in the last couple of days.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
and that's a really big wake up call, I think, that we don't really, I don't want to say own our audiences on our platforms, but we don't really have ownership of where those audiences are. Like, it's a really good reminder that if you can, as a creator, bring your audience to bring your community to like a Discord or to a website or to something, or even posting on multiple platforms, so that your community is somewhere else besides, you know, just one place. Because yeah, for someone like me, if TikTok goes away tomorrow, that will kind of suck.
Yeah, totally. Which highlights also, right, like your voice, because then basically wherever you go, it's recognizable, right? Like, what is it that makes Justin Justin? So in the event that TikTok goes bye-bye, it's like, oh, well, here he is on YouTube. So do you not upload your vertical content to YouTube then? You don't, do you?
I do. Well, a YouTube Shorts is only 1 minute, and I often make videos. I don't really pay attention to the length when I make them, and so half the time, if it's like a minute and 30 seconds or 20 seconds or something, I'm like, I might trim it down to post it or whatever. But it kind of depends. I definitely look at like I feel like YouTube Shorts is a lot different than like Shorts and Reels and TikTok. They're all different in just these nuanced ways that end up making a big difference if you don't create your content specifically for each one, especially if you don't have a following that's getting your content pushed out to like a good base audience to begin with.
And that's why it's like I keep it to 60 seconds, because for me, vertical is just like whatever, wherever. But like, and oftentimes promotional or clips too from like these episodes. But it's just like, as much as I want to play the game for each, it's like, nope, just rip it and ship it and roll the dice on who likes it today, depending on which, you know, it's like, okay, yeah, that one will probably do better on TikTok. And that one will probably do better on Instagram, whatever. Just which I kind of hate, right? It just feels like you're shotgunning stuff out, but I don't know.
I also feel like on YouTube, like videos have a lot longer lifespan on YouTube. Like I feel like there's videos that are years and years old that are still highly relevant on YouTube, and they kind of retain that relevance, you know? So there's a lot, yeah, there's just a lot of reasons why YouTube is it's the place to be for a lot of reasons. But I love that I started on TikTok, and again, like, yeah, if I could just make short video, like short form, if I could just make TikToks, I would totally do that. It is my favorite thing to do. I love, like, I started off very awkward and like not loving filming myself and everything like that. And now I love it. It's like, especially coming from like, you know, working as an editor professionally, it's like, there are no notes. There's nobody like looking over your shoulder. There's just like, it's just me. And you can do what you want. It's so cool. It's the coolest way to do editing, in my opinion, is edit yourself and be, you know, be your own boss and make your own notes. And then, But for me, it definitely like it's that same thing where I'm like, oh yeah, I could just make TikToks if that was all I had to do was just make TikToks and have to worry about anything else. I could totally do that. That would be awesome. But is that how I'm going to build an audience, launch plugins, build a community, do all these things that I want to do around like editing and DaVinci Resolve? Or am I better suited to like build up YouTube at the same time? And I think it's definitely having YouTube, building YouTube is probably, I think the average person would say you should do YouTube to do those things. Yeah.
No, that's why I wanted to talk to you because gosh, that's what I would say, right? It's like, well, and like just kind of a little funny thing that you'll appreciate. Like, how freaking dumb is it to try to fit resolve in vertical when you're teaching something, dude? Like, that was the first thing where I was just
Yeah.
like, I know this is good, and some people watch this and then they probably like have to go back and save it or whatever. But this is the stupid like DaVinci's not vertical, you know? Like, this is so, I mean, like, it works, but it just is not the greatest way to show it. Whereas it's like, yeah, if this was on 16 by 9, I could, you're going to punch in on stuff, but at least like it looks at a very base, full out zoom level, it looks like it should look.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I think that makes total sense. Like, I think you, especially with that plugin, right? I mean, I think you're heading in a direction and doing some things that is totally up to YouTube neck of the woods as far as like good fit and like getting people what they need for what it is that you're making. So
Totally. I mean, with that plugin, I tried to make it from the user experience and work backwards. So basically, I was like, I want to make a drag and drop plugin that does this. Okay, I have no idea how to make that, so figure out how to make that. But it wasn't like, oh, I figured out how to do this, and then how can I turn into the? I literally worked the opposite direction because I only really see the value as like what would really wow people or what would be really amazing is if you could just literally one click kind of thing and you get the effect. But unfortunately, like making all of the stuff fit into that is a lot trickier. But if you can pull it off, that's when it's kind of cool. So
oh, for sure. No, that's yeah, that makes total sense. I think. Well, and that's it. I mean, that's editing in a nutshell too, right? It's like here's the problem I'm trying to solve. How do I go about doing it? And like plugins are that exact same philosophy. So
the only other thing I was going to say too, like in terms of the new, like just tips for people who are starting, and this is might all be moot if TikTok goes away tomorrow, but just wanted to share like you know the like we talked about having that kind of longer term mindset when you're as a content creator. But I also just wanted to say, just like for anybody that is starting out, I think it's really important to. I think there's like there's a couple things, but there's like the whole emotional aspect of it, where where it's like the more time that you spend making content, the more naturally invested you're going to be in it and in the outcomes. And I think that like that's something that I would tell myself if I was just starting out as well. It's that just be careful to just kind of like distance yourself, like still care about what you're doing and be passionate about what you're doing, but just try to like install a switch at the beginning that you can kind of turn off um, on from to distance yourself from those outcomes and how you feel about yourself and like your self-worth and all those kind of things. Try to keep that separate from like how your audience feels about your content, how it performs, how many likes you get, what kind of comments you get, everything like that. Because again, and it all goes back to that long-term mindset. It's like, how can I do this in a way that is going to make sense for me and where I can be happy and be a person living my life. And I think that being aware of that, that we don't want to get too sucked into being, I'll die to make the best content and I'll just pour my sweat, blood, and tears into it. And then it just flops and you're like, well, oh my gosh, it's like, no. You got to think of it as like, it's just a day in the office. I'm doing what I love to do. If it's what you love to do and you're putting in the reps, right? You're doing the work. And if it's more than that, or if, that's where it kind of gets it makes people quit, right? Because I've definitely felt that where it's like, I put in all this work. Like, I feel like, especially when I started, I'm like, I feel like I'm owed for all the work that I put into this thing. And it's like, no, not the right mindset. You're not owed anything.
no, totally. Yeah, and it circles back to that like finding the thing that burns for you, right? Because you really all you should at the very beginning get out of it is just the joy of doing it. And that's the only way you'll get past the hump of like, oh, There was my 3 view video that I spent all week working on,
Yeah.
you know, because dude, I mean, and that's what's crazy about Schaefer is like he's been doing it for like 12 years and he's really starting to like see a lot of success. And I thought like I've been doing YouTube for, and again, I've kind of gone in and out like we talked about, but like 6 or 7 years, which is still a pretty dang long time. And for so much of that, it's just crickets, man. It's just nothing. Like, and it's like, yeah, you gotta love it because otherwise you'll just never keep going. And you know what? That's fine. If you don't, like that's totally fine. And so no, I think that is great advice what you're saying.
I think when people see, like, if somebody sees your YouTube video, they don't know if it's your 10th YouTube video, your 100th YouTube video, your 1000th YouTube video. And I think that's why everybody's like our default mindset is that way, is because we don't know. We don't know, like, unless you had told me like, oh, I've been doing this for 6 years and I've done this many videos. Um, it's like, oh, okay, all of a sudden your expertise, your knowledge, your how you're comfortable doing this, how your edits look, how your videos look and feel, your storytelling. All of a sudden, all this starts to make sense because you've put in the reps, right? And I think that's what nobody really sees, especially when they're just scrolling or they're watching videos. Nobody really sees that, right? And it's so important to I guess to have that information to know that no, you're like all these your favorite creators. They put in the reps, they put in the work, and there's like they started here, and that's how they got here, kind of thing.
We all hate to hear it, but the honest truth is like, just gotta practice, man. Which is the dumbest answer because we all don't want it to take a decade, but it just does. It just does. Yeah, Justin, dude, this was a great conversation, man. Thank you so much for coming on here. I'm so every time I get done with these, I just can't wait to cut it up because I'm just so excited to share this with people. We talked about so many great things. Real quick before we're done today, where can we find you? And just yeah, thank you again, man.
Thank you so much for having me on. I love, like, yeah, it kind of became a long, a long one, but yeah, we just start chatting and it's just, we're so pumped about this. I love chatting with you because you are so pumped about editing and I love dorking out on all this stuff with you. It's awesome. So, yes, I am on TikTok at MrJustinEdits and YouTube at MrJustinEdits.
Oh, so excited. So everyone go check him out. He's awesome. Thank you again, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much, dude. Rock on.
Later.